So verse 5 says that Judas hanged himself. And if you're a note taker, Acts chapter 1, verse 18 says, Judas fell headlong, and his body burst open, and his guts gushed out. And so this appears to be a contradiction in the Bible. But it's not. The Bible is God's Word, and it contains no contradictions. The Bible is what we call infallible, meaning that it is without error, it's without mistakes, it's without contradictions. So then, how do we reconcile these two passages? Did Judas hang himself, or did he fall head first and his body burst open? Well, one possibility is when Judas hung himself, that the branch broke or the rope broke and he fell to the ground and burst open. So both happen. Both are true. Another possibility that I think is more likely is related to a practice that they had in Jerusalem at that time. During that time, if a dead body was found in the city of Jerusalem during one of the feasts, one of the celebrations, this is during Passover. If a dead body was found in the city of Jerusalem during the Passover, it would make the city ceremonially unclean. So what they would do is, if they came upon a dead body that, he doesn't belong to anybody, nobody's claiming the body, they found a dead body in the city, they would very quickly take the corpse to the southern end of the city and throw the corpse over the wall of the city into the valley of Hinnom to keep the city from becoming unclean. So if Judas hanged himself somewhere in the city of Jerusalem, his corpse would defile the city, so they would take his corpse and cast it over the wall into the valley of Hinnom. And that's when he fell headlong and his body burst open and his guts gushed out. And that to me seems like the likely explanation and how you reconcile these two. He hanged himself in the city, but then they cast his corpse over the wall into the valley of Hinnom. Now I have a map for you that I want to show you of the city of Jerusalem. That rectangle up towards the top, that's the Temple Mount where the temple was located. To the right side of the city, you see the Kidron Valley, which is a valley that runs along the east side of the city. And then below the city, you have the Hinnom Valley. And you can see the little dot we have at the bottom right-hand corner of the city, and it says Topheth and Al-Qadama down there. Where that circle is, that's where they would have cast his body over the wall, down into the valley of Hinnom. That is the lowest point in the city of Jerusalem. It sits at the lowest elevation for the city of Jerusalem. That's the valley of Hinnom, where they would have cast his body, right where the Hinnom Valley and the Kidron Valley meet and intersects each other. And now watch what happens here in verse 6. But the chief priests took the silver pieces. Remember, he threw it into the temple building. They're the only ones who can go in there. So now they've got these 30 pieces of silver. They took the silver pieces and said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury because they are the price of blood." Now wait a minute. These same religious leaders took money out of the treasury to bribe Judas to betray Jesus so they could kill Jesus. And now that he returns the money to them, they say, well, it's not lawful for us to put it into the temple treasury because it's the price of blood. Suddenly they're concerned about doing what's lawful and ethical while they're trying to kill the Son of God. This is what you call straining a gnat and swallowing a camel. Now, please note that these religious leaders say it's not lawful to put the money in the temple treasury because it's the price of blood. It's blood money. Do you know what blood money is? Blood money is money paid to get someone else killed. by their own admission, the chief priests acknowledge that it's blood money, that they paid Judas blood money to kill Jesus. This is incredible. I mean, it's like we've got it on tape, them confessing that they conspired to murder Jesus Christ, and they paid money to have him betrayed. And these are the leaders of the nation. The leaders of the nation paying to have someone murdered, and they used money out of the temple treasury to pay for his murder. That would be money that people gave as an act of worship. Talk about misusing funds. So this is scandalous. So now we have the testimony of Judas that Jesus is innocent, and the testimony of the Sanhedrin that they used temple money to pay for the murder of Jesus Christ. So they decide, verse 7, they consulted together, and they bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. So the Sanhedrin, they consulted together to decide, what do we do with this blood money? And they decided to buy the potter's field. A potter's field was a field where a potter would collect clay to make their pottery. And so a potter's field was typically, scraped down to the bedrock. You really can't farm that land because there's no more earth on top of the bedrock. And they are going to buy this potter's field, and they're going to use that field as a cemetery to bury strangers that are unclaimed, kind of thing. And Acts chapter 1, it tells us this field they buy is the field where they tossed Judas's body over the wall. So they buy that field where his body was cast over the wall. Acts chapter 1 also indicates that the field was put in Judas's name. So the religious leaders, apparently, they worked out a deal where all the paperwork is in the name of Judas Iscariot so that no one would connect it back to them. Can you imagine leaders being so corrupt to try to conspire to murder people and cover their tracks like that? And the field was known. Look at verse 8. Therefore that field has been called the field of blood to this day.